My name is London Moffett. It's January 31st, 2026. Today I'm going to be talking about The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. S.E. actually stands for Susan Eloise. She wanted to hide her gender when she published this novel. She was also a teenager, and it is a fictional coming-of-age story set in rural Oklahoma, published in 1967. I like this cover because on the front it says, "A revealing novel about teenagers by a teenager." I read this book broken up within like an hour and a half to 2 hour chunks between 2 days. It's 162 pages, so it is a fairly short read. However, it is jam-packed full of character development, dialogue, and symbolism that is really great for the reader to get engaged with. I'm going to be focusing on chapter 11 in this story. However, I'm just going to catch you up to speed. At this point, Ponyboy and Johnny have returned from being on the run. They have rescued the kids from the church, becoming what we would call an oxymoron, hero greasers. The big rumble has went down with the greasers beating the Socias, but upon their win, Ponyboy goes to the hospital where Johnny tells him to stay at Gold before dying. Ponyboy returns home where he passes out from a concussion he received in the rumble, and he wakes up a week later. So my chapter begins when he awakens after a week in bed, and he's coming to reality with the trauma of what has occurred. And yeah. So my claim is that chapter 11 is a huge point, like a turning point of Ponyboy's character development. It serves for a mirror for how we deal with grief. Eyes even serve as a symbol that Ponyboy sees the character's humanity through. And he does that with the main antagonist, Bob. But he's also using his grief to deal with Johnny's death. It's an interesting juxtaposition because we have a breakthrough about his enemy, but he's also in denial and avoiding the reality of his friend at the same time. One passage that supports my claim is on pages 140 and 141. He says, "Not even when I read the name Robert Sheldon did it hit me who it was. And then I finally realized it was Bob. I took a real good long look at it. The picture didn't look a whole lot like the Bob I remembered, but nobody ever looks like his picture in a yearbook anyways. He was a sophomore that year. That would make him about 18 when he died. Yeah, he was good looking even back then, with a grin that reminded me of Soda's, a kind of reckless grin. He had been a handsome black-haired boy with dark eyes, maybe brown like Soda's, maybe dark blue like the Shepherd boys. Maybe he'd had black eyes like Johnny. I had never given Bob much thought. I hadn't had time to think." Then Ponyboy asked himself, "But what about the Bob Shelton Cherry Valance knew?" He concludes, "Then I looked at Bob's picture, and I could begin to see the person that we had killed, a reckless, hot-tempered boy, cocky and scared stiff at the same time." So Ponyboy is finally taking the time to look at his character. And we know that eyes are a huge symbol throughout this novel. He opens it up discussing his greenish-gray eyes and how most people he has problems with have green eyes. The eyes are often a reflection of the character's traits. Derry's are stiff and icy, like his strict demeanor. Johnny's are black and scared. His mom's eyes were hard and mean. After his first conversation with Cherry, he notices her green eyes. And he finally says he sees Bob, which is maybe a play on words, but he's seeing Bob as someone much like the greasers, reckless, hot-tempered, cocky, and scared. We often say that eyes are the windows to the soul, and they can, reflect our shared commonalities and also differences among us. So I think it's a huge part of his character development to finally be seeing Bob as a person and even seeing how much in common he had with him and having that conversation with Randy. So like I said, I mentioned that breakthrough, and then I want to see how another part of his character development is the mirror to how we deal with grief, because Ponyboy is in denial about everything that has happened while he has this conversation with Randy. On page 145, it begins with Randy saying, "Listen to me, Pony. You didn't do anything. It was your friend Johnny that had the knife." "I had it." I stopped him. He was looking at me strangely. "I had the knife. I killed Bob." Randy shook his head. "I saw it. You were almost drowned. It was the black-headed guy that had the switchblade. Bob scared him into doing it. I saw it. I was bewildered. I killed him. I had a switchblade, and I was scared they were going to beat me up." "No, kid, it was your friend, the one who died in the hospital." "Johnny is not dead." My voice was shaking. "Johnny is not dead." So I think it's important to focus on how he keeps repeating to himself, I killed him, I did it, Johnny's not dead. He's really trying to believe himself. And they say that the first step of grief is denial. So Ponyboy is dealing with that grief by, he's not thinking about the court case, he's rewriting himself as the bad guy, and he's denying Johnny's death. But also, it kind of talks about how Ponyboy has always been pressured to hide his thoughts and feelings, whether it's just being quiet or alone or going to movies by himself. This seems to be his breaking point after being strong for so long. And I can relate to that because being the eldest daughter, I often feel the need to protect my younger sisters or the people I love. So it's really important to have support systems in our lives. So like I said, this is a really interesting chapter in the novel. You've got a foil going on of these different problems. He's going like one step forward, a couple steps back, and it really sets us up for the conclusion that's about to happen. Really great stuff. As for joys I experienced reading this, I would say familiarity was one of them. I definitely remember reading this book when I was in middle school. I remember doing like a critical analysis of the Stay Gold poem by Robert Frost. I've seen the movie. I actually rewatched it once I finished it. So that was really fun for me, looking back on something from a different perspective. I don't know if it hit harder as an adult or maybe it was just kind of refreshed in my mind, but I really enjoyed it. Another joy I experienced was Revelation, because Johnny's death, at first he's like so scared and he hasn't, he's like, I haven't been here long enough. But then you get that letter from him that falls out of the book that says it was worth it. And all of us have a certain time on earth and we have a big choice in how we choose to spend it. So what are we going to do? Can we stay gold like Ponyboy, or are we going to end up like Dally? So yeah, that's going to be my book talk. Thank you all for coming by. I hope we all had a fun time reading this novel, and good luck throughout the semester.